He's a rogue. He's been known to be involved in the underworld for many years now, running a crew called Boko Haram out of Mamelodi, being involved in all kinds of different crimes. When he was awarded the police wellness tender in June of last year, it came as a complete and utter shock to everybody. I think Mkwanazi has done us a good turn. Whether what he says turns out to be correct, somewhat correct or incorrect, at this point is irrelevant. He started the conversation. He's brought this war directly to the people. You can see by the way he speaks, you can see by the way he's dressed, that this is a war that he's brought.
Chad Thomas, let me bring you into this. You follow what happens within crime fighting, policing quite closely. And just recently we were talking about the arrest of Dumisani Khumalo, the head of crime intelligence, and that seemed to be the focus of the story. Only for this afternoon for us to hear that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and these concerns are being brought to the fore by the police commissioner in KwaZulu-Natal. Are you able to make heads or tails of everything that we've heard this afternoon?
Good afternoon to you and the viewers, as well as the other members of this panel. Look, this is a reckoning that has needed to happen within the South African police services. We've been speaking for years and years and years about the different issues within the policing structures, yet nobody has stood up behind a podium and actually called out certain things the way in which Mkwanazi did today. The story around Vusi Katbatlala is exceptionally interesting. He's a rogue. He's been known to be involved in the underworld for many years now, running a crew called Boko Haram out of Mamelodi, being involved in all kinds of different crimes. When he was awarded the police wellness tender in June of last year, it came as a complete and utter shock to everybody that somebody with his background could be awarded such an important contract. The people that have been investigating murder for hire in Gauteng, a dedicated small team of crime intelligence members protected by the Special Task Force, have been able to, through their arrests, link so many people to this conspiracy, including Vusi Katbatlala and other senior members. And credit must be given to those members because they've uncovered linkages to very senior members, in fact, their very own bosses within crime intelligence. So it just shows that within our police ranks, there are still members committed to serving and understanding what it means to wear that badge. I think Mkwanazi has done us a good turn. Whether what he says turns out to be correct, somewhat correct or incorrect, at this point is irrelevant. He started the conversation. He's brought this war directly to the people. You can see by the way he speaks, you can see by the way he's dressed, that this is a war that he's brought directly to them. And he's saying we need to fight for the very fiber of the police force.
Yeah.
We hope that his intentions are good. And we hope that this is the reckoning we as the citizens of this country have been waiting for so many years.
Yeah. Chad, before I go to Ongama Mtimka, who has now joined this conversation, let me just take the point a bit further with you around what we heard this afternoon, well, earlier on in the day, from Lieutenant General Mkwanazi, a number of names being mentioned. And you just wonder what the response and the pushback will be. And I do suspect, and Mzwandile Mbeche and I have been talking to some length about a kind of restructuring, repositioning, rearrangement of the decks within SAPS, that we may see narratives that may seem to suggest that all of this may be linked to this, not forgetting that Mkwanazi himself was not until, just not long ago mentioned in connection with some irregularity or another relating to a senior correctional services official. Could there be more at play? Things to do with the imminent, the now vacant position of head of the Hawks and any other rearranging of the decks as far as the structures of the SAPS go?
Oh, most definitely, that's a certainty. Remember, when Mkwanazi was head, or acting head rather, of the South African Police Services, when he was appointed back in 2012, he was the first to, at that point, suspend General Mdluli from crime intelligence, who had been involved in a whole array of serious crimes, for which he's been found guilty on some, and in others he's still on trial for. So Mkwanazi is coming forward as somebody who has a history of not being shy to take on those that he believes may have corrupted the service at any point. Yes, that story that came out with him and the so-called correctional services official and the narcotics, it may have been disinformation. It may need to be investigated further. But it just shows what's happening in the background and how people are being used to spin and how even in the private sector, there are certain bad actors that are being used to prop up those that are within the state law enforcement to keep those positions, to be able to perhaps enable and even embolden certain criminals in South Africa.
The point has been made, and analysis and I suppose critique has been made that there's a tendency in South Africa to want people to be wholly good or wholly bad, demons and angels kind of narrative. Part of what I noticed in this story is that it involves now Lieutenant General Mkwanazi, who has enjoyed a fair amount of public support, but also now Shadrach Sibia, someone that over the last few years, the narrative was that he certainly was a bulwark against some of the capture and corruption of processes within the police. Help us make sense of it. How tricky does this make the picture that you sit here with someone that many people have had faith in now being accused in the manner that is happening at the moment?
Yeah, it's a very difficult position that we as a country find ourselves in, especially those of us that are involved in law enforcement as well as journalists. We tend to look to people in leadership as being appointed based on merit, based on the fact that they're in that position because they were vocationally aligned and inclined to wanting to make a difference, especially in South Africa where we have this massive war on crime, where crime has seemed to have the upper hand the last couple of years. For myself, when Senzo Mkhunu became minister, I thought it was a breath of fresh air. He seemed to come across as very victim-centric. He even called for the very first anti-crime summit, bringing together all the role players. So I hope that a lot of what's been said today can be explained. But one thing that needs to be made very clear is that the police are at war with itself. And like you mentioned, you spoke about you can either be an angel or you can be a demon. Within crime intelligence, it's neither. It's a gray area in which they walk. They have to be aligned to the police, but at the same time, they have to infiltrate crime syndicates. And it opens up the door for people to be compromised. And it's time that this reckoning took place. We as the people of South Africa deserve accountability and transparency from our police leaders. And I just hope that the president does make the right decisions going forward and that what happened today opens the doors to thorough discussion and cleansing of a department that seems to be broken at this point in time.
Mzwai, let me just quickly touch with you on the issue of timing. Everyone, almost all the voices we've heard from this morning, the political voices, are saying that we need to hear from the president as soon as possible. This is an issue that has implications for national security, the stability within police, law enforcement and the likes. The timing, though, it's a week we are in mourning, as we just said now, with the passing on of the former deputy president, but also the president is out of the country.
Well, there does appear to be quite a lot at play here. So clearly, if there are certain things that are happening in the background that you and I may not necessarily be privy to, so you'll not necessarily be alive to the fact that you have to time certain things. So once you feel for you at that particular moment, it's time you speak, you'll certainly go out and speak regardless of what else is happening.
Also depending what other processes are playing themselves out in the background that may not necessarily be reflected in the official statement.
Absolutely, that's exactly. In fact, that's why I was saying, I mean, if you listened to Mkwanazi, talking about the arrest of Khumalo, you sometimes, I mean, you can't not think, is there something coming on your way? Of course, we don't know. But clearly, as we have said, the reason why people are saying we need to hear from the president, we need to hear from the minister, because we need to understand why would a provincial commissioner go as far as to say these explosive
a commissioner
statements.
Who's actually quite popular, who's riding the tide of popularity at the moment.
Exactly.
Stake it all.
Yes.
What's really going on in
What's
the
really
background?
going on? And remember, he did not even confine himself to only the province. He also went as far as to indicate what is happening at national, what is happening even in Gauteng. So how have we been working together? So what is it that is forcing him? So that is why we are saying the leadership of the police. In fact, I would also want to hear from the National Commissioner himself. What is it? Because he says he has passed these things on to you. So have you passed them on to
Yeah.
the minister and the president.
All right, let's